My name is D.Moss, and welcome to the last page. Today we have a very special guest. His name is James WooBear Lewis. If you're from around the New England or tri-state area, you've more than heard his name quite a few times. Today we're going to talk with James. I want to take a minute to say thank you for being here, and I'd like to give you a chance to say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Look, man, listen. So here, I'm going to keep it real simple. We're going to start from the beginning. I like to jump right into my interviews. So tell me, what was your first encounter with music or event organizing that made you realize this could become a lifelong calling?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. I guess a couple. The first time being involved with something was carrying the records for James Williams, the soul communicator, back when he was a couple years older than me, and he lived across the street, and carrying his records to help him load his car and stuff to go do a gig. And then after that, I moved out to California for my junior year and senior year out in California, and just ran into cats in my neighborhood that I lived in that were doing events, big events. A cat, Henry Gage, lived around the corner, went to school with his sister. He was at San Jose State at the time, an engineering major, but he had a thing, and him and his partners were doing big parties, and me and one of my partners, we helped out to pass out flyers, and I guess it was the early street team kind of thing, trying to help spread the word. But back then, at San Jose State, he was doing parties in the ballroom. Star Wars was out. We bought Star Wars swords for the stage in the middle of the room. Big dance party, staging little fake fights on the stage, partying, and we just partied and had fun. It was definitely a different time. It was the late 80s, 79, 80, early 80s. But being around those cats, and his next door neighbor had two sisters, and they're very pretty. So a lot of promoters would hang out at their house, and you just listen to cats' conversations. They were doing a lot of big things, and some of them are still doing big things right now.
Okay. So way back then, before you left to go to college, now you said you went out there to go to college, correct?
No, I went out there to finish high school. I went out there originally. Me and my brother went out to visit our dad because he hadn't been a part of our life. Since he and my mom did a divorce, I hadn't seen him. So he had reached out, hey, do you guys want to come, spend some time in California? I'm like, what kid don't want to go to California? I live in Massachusetts. I'm like, what? Okay, free trip to California? We out. So me and my brother went out, and I decided to stay. So I finished high school out. I was in high school there. I was supposed to finish the whole year, but this is when my grades from at Springfield Tech, I probably would have been like a CB student. But there, when they did my stuff, they said, okay, you only need 2 classes to graduate. I'm like, what?
Oh, wow.
2 classes? No more math, no more science, no more English? No, you don't need none of that. They had me down for typing, home ec, and stuff like that. Like, well, what 2 classes I need to graduate? Well, you need civics and American problems. Like, well, I never heard of that, but okay. Took those 2 classes, basically just using information from reading the newspaper in Springfield. And the things that Springfield was doing that I guess they weren't doing in San Jose at that time. So aced the classes, got out of school early, started going to junior college.
Okay.
From that, hanging out at San Jose State with the cats doing parties, and we started an organization just to throw parties at Evergreen, which is a community college, like Stick is. And we started an organization, and we threw a big picnic out on the grass.
Oh, wow.
So
see, I never knew all that. I knew you lived in California, but I'm like, okay. And I used to be like, okay, he doesn't sing, he doesn't play an instrument, but there's not a single live venue or DJ venue that happens without him knowing about it or being a part of it. So at what point did you really be like, yo, music is my thing?
I think, like I said, with the soul communicator thing, carrying the records was cool. But
Yep.
being in California at that time and being around and seeing cats really doing big parties, 1,000 people, that kind of stuff, concerts, and being around DJs that were doing major things, and actually be able to stop into KMEL, which was a commercial station back then, with I think Jay Jackson was there as a DJ. He's legendary now, but hanging out with Mark Duncan, who was a DJ for most of the Disconnection parties with Henry, and Joe Wyrick, who was hanging out at his house. He was another DJ, but he was also a high jumper. I went to school with his sister. I mean, that neighborhood, man, is being around a middle-class neighborhood of folks that were on the right track doing stuff, which was totally different than, not to say that Springfield was bad, but that neighborhood was, it was just different, man. Everybody, all the parents were working, doing stuff. And so just seeing that, and, one of my friends was in the youth NAACP, and then they got me involved with stuff, and, working with him, going up to Oakland to march and protest and all these kind of things. You start thinking, wow, man, these guys are out here really doing some stuff, because I didn't know about that when I was in Springfield. So, but everybody there was involved. Music was the unifying thing between all of those. Mark Duncan now, he and his sister, they own a golf course.
Wow.
In Northern California. He sells a lot of real estate, but he still DJs in those parties at his old house on the weekends, just in the neighborhood, just doing stuff. So, and then Tony Alexander, who was my friend that was in the NAACP, he worked at a record store. So he got me a job at the record store. So being at the music shack, hanging out, and just being around folks that did music. And one of my best friends that from the high school, because I wasn't in high school that long. I was only in there by December. I was out of high school. I was working a day full-time job and going to community college. So my boy Maurice joined the band, and I was out hanging out with them. They were musicians, So I just hung out with musicians, listen and watch and observe, and say, hey, these are things I like, and so it was. And then still to this day, you still listen, read the magazines of stuff. Well, now you don't get the magazines, but back then you bought all the magazines to read, and listen to cats at the college radio stations back then. And when I came back, I think I moved back to Massachusetts in '82 when my brother graduated from high school, and I decided to stay.
Okay.
But I still kept in contact with my friends in California because my eyes have been open to see stuff. That cats were doing big things, and one of those cats, Jeff Flanagan, is still doing stuff now. I think he has the biggest black film distribution in the country.
Oh wow!
So you still see these names pop up from cats that were in the neighborhoods. So that kind of drives you to say, okay, I need to do something, or I want to do something to be like them. Whether you make it or not, it still gives you that drive to be a part of something, and to realize that everything is a team effort, and you want to be part of a collective.
Okay, that's dope. So, all right, so that explains a whole lot in terms of the cultural movement that you kind of helped to spur. We'll talk about. We'll get to that part. Now, in terms of your background, you did quite a few things yourself outside of the work that you did. Just helping out or getting involved down in Cali. You spent time working as an A&R rep for some major record labels. Am I wrong?
Well, I wasn't an A&R rep, but I was more of a lifestyle marketing street team. And if you came across somebody, you could tell people, hey, this person is this. You ran across somebody, those kind of things. But me and Ross mostly did lifestyle marketing team, and a lot of that was from being music director at TCC and doing the little club parties and DJing at AIC and SCB, where you met some reps and you did some things, and having those folks give you ideas of what you could do, and there's so many people that put you on different paths. There was Hakeem, who went to AIC, whose family owned a record store in Boston, but he worked at a distribution company. And in Springfield, I also worked at the record stores, Music Center, Main Music. So you meet folks, you meet DJs, you meet artists, and you're doing lifestyle marketing for or giving or more like consulting for Mike Gagney, who was then the booking guy for the Civic Center back then, and then he went to Riverside, and so he would come in the store and say, well, who do you think will work? I said, oh no, I think you need to do, you got this young kid Usher, you need to grab him. I think young kids will like him, and so
Right.
people taking your opinion on stuff and saying okay, and going with it. Then you see it be successful. You're like, oh, okay, well, this is a good thing. And hanging out with Joe Guz, and just being in places, barbershops and stuff where you hear the conversations.
Okay, and just kind of keeping your pulse on the energy of the community and keeping your pulse on the streets, as they say.
Right.
Okay, so let's go back to Stick. How long have you? I mean, for those who don't know, James is a very popular radio personality on 90.7. Yeah, I know it. I know. It's like when I'm, let me say, 90.7 WTCC in Springfield, Mass. So I remember being out in places. I'd be out with Ty, somebody in Brooklyn, or just be in places. And folks who know me know that on the side I do my promoting, and people be like, oh, WooBear? And at the time I didn't know who WooBear was, but I knew who James Lewis was. And I'm like, James, yeah, from the radio station. People would know you everywhere I went. So when you say, yeah, I wasn't that popular, we all know you're a humble dude. How long have you been with 90.7? And I don't know, just talk about the experience as a radio personality / DJ.
Well, I mean, for the radio thing, because we, as WooBear, we and the little crew that we had together, we do dance parties mostly, house music. Anything that was different than everybody else, that's what we geared towards, was doing. So we did different parties, and then Marlon McCants on the Dare put us on the air collectively at AIC. So we had a little house music, soulful house music show on AIC, and then we started doing. But we said okay, Then she's like, okay, well, my thing was like, yo, how come y'all play the same music all the time? There's more music out here. She's like, well, you should come on and do something. Okay, so and we did with Tyrone and Eduardo, and DJing. Cass came on, then I started doing an overnight slow jam show, which got me in some trouble. But it was fun. But you were able to play what you want, and get a little more into it. And we're like I said, we still work at the record store, so we're buying music. You get to TCC and you start meeting. I've been at TCC now probably close to 30 years now, something like that. So we came from AIC and SCB to, actually folks brought us over there to come to TCC. So I was content at AIC and SCB,
Right.
But we got into TCC through the jazz department, because I also play jazz, and I was like, well, you have to play jazz. Like, well, I play jazz. I'm cool. So coming in through jazz, and then getting worked into the Black Spectrum urban programming. Some people wanted us there, some people didn't. Because me and Marlo came over together. So
I didn't know that she had been there as long as you had.
Yeah, she had about the same amount of time, and Marlo was doing stuff with Mingo and her cousin when they were doing the stuff down in Riverfront Park, and we'd just help out or whatever, and then WooBear, we did party, the Midnight Madness parties at the Panache and Gym Night Madness down at the New England Health and Racket Club, and stuff at SAS. And then we did parties with parties to the bus trips to the garage in New York and Zanzibar in Jersey. So you had a kind of little kind of like a cult following of folks from Hartford and Springfield. You put them all on the bus and they're hanging out. So it was fun times. Then after we would drive to New York sometimes to go to the garage, and then when the club closed, or 10 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd go to the record store, buy the records we heard that night, and come back and play them. When we could. So I mean, we just young cats having good times and just having fun. We still try to have fun now, and being at TCC and record stores, you start meeting the retail reps, and then when you start saying, well, what can I do to get known more? What can I do to help the station and the market grow more? You start becoming music directors and stuff like that, and start doing charts and playlists and those kind of things. And then, back now they don't really have it, but back then you had urban college reps. So they'd reach out for your college station, make sure that you got service. And, we'd take the trips to New York, to Boston, to the branches. And luckily back then, like Mike Anderson was from TCC, but he was going to college in Boston. And Don Wilkinson, same thing. They were college reps, so they look out for the home team. And Hakeem had worked at PG. He was a college rep, and then when they invite you to come down to the office, it's like a kid in a candy store. It's like, look at all this music here. What y'all gonna do with all this? Oh, grab what you want. Oh, okay, well, you don't want to tell me that because I got my car. We good. Y'all get what y'all need. Let's go back. Here, y'all. Here's some music. Or back then, it was TCC had a radiothon. It was okay. Well, here's the music we can use for radiothon. Gotcha. So I mean, but it was actively getting out and driving and putting in the time and effort to go meet people, follow up, and then once we got, some of the people, which are still some of my mentors today, even though they were younger than me, they were still my mentors because they were in the game. Whereas for TCC, there's a community college, but there's really no college students there. And so, it's older folks, but you get to know these college reps, and now all of them are VPs or presidents of their own stuff. So they're being mentors to you, and then they move up and start saying, "Hey, we're doing lifestyle." You're telling them about what's going on in your market. They're like, "Well, maybe you should do street team." Like, okay, well, what's that? Well, you just need to go out and pass out flyers and find DJs and find hot spots and get people's opinion. Okay, well, we'll try that. So that kind of how it went, but because we weren't doing a lot of parties, so it was just a little different focus.
Okay. Wow. All right, so that's the background. That's WooBear, the beginning, the birth. Now, there's a section I like to call building community through culture. I mean, there are some folks who will say, "Well, who's James Lewis?" Oh, he's a cultural organizer. He helps to organize a lot of stuff in the community. How do you define that role? What does being involved in the community mean to you personally?
I mean, it is for me. I think there's more being community organizations that are trying stuff, whether it was the MLK Pep Squad or any other youth organization that was going on, or somebody would say, "Hey, we're trying to do this," and say, "Okay, well, this is what we can do. Here's my suggestion or whatever." Or here's somebody that of like mind, y'all may want to combine up and do something together, to get stuff going. And sometimes you might meet folks outside your market to get them to see the picture of what you're doing. But I think a lot of that came from being with Tony Alexander in California with the NAACP youth and doing those kind of things. Because actually, when I was in California, we went to the national convention with NAACP, and I met folks from Springfield. They were on the youth council or NAACP. So when I moved back, it's like, okay, let me reach out to them and see what we can do or what I can help them with. So which B.O. Quinn and Paula Williams and a few other folks, and Sophie Jeffries moving down in Miami. Hearing somebody from Springfield, you down here in Miami, really? Okay. So you're like,
whoa.
Yeah, so you're always curious. Oh, okay, well, dang, Springfield folks are moving around, which is kind of like this. You're in Atlanta. Look how many people in Springfield are down that way, or back home in Georgia because their parents and cousins down there. Because we had went to Georgia every year because we were sent down south. Okay, we need to go see how you can live in the country and do all those kind of things. Like, okay, well, can we go back home now? Can I get back to Reed Village? You're like, oh, okay, this is not for me. But now down south is the place to be.
Absolutely. Man, I'll never move back up to New England. Down south is just, I say, in terms of making money, you really got to figure out where you fit in. But culturally speaking, and I think for me, in terms like me meeting you up in Springfield, I think the biggest piece would be the cultural portion. And in terms of some, just you being in the position you were in, and the number, you probably didn't realize how much of a blessing you were. A lot of stuff that I was able to do was because of your position at stake, your position in the community in terms of the things that you've done. When I was at the Martin Luther King Center, we're organizing, I was doing the gang intervention and everything. And you would always let me on the air to talk about what I did. Everybody else would be like, I don't know this guy. You'd be like, yeah, come on. And I think that's how I got my start in terms of doing public relations stuff in Springfield on your radio show. So, you're a critical piece of the culture of the community in Springfield, and even outside of Springfield. It's like, so talk about that. When you talk about community, you always seem to keep the door open. You mentioned you'd have suggestions, trying to find ways for people to work together to either make the work easier or to supplement the resources. What's that about? Because to this day, you still do it.
Well, people always talk about work smarter and not harder. I can't physically go to New Haven on a regular basis, or Hartford, or Northampton, or Amherst. But if you can find people in those towns that are of like minds and they want to do stuff, then you say, well, hey, let's all collaborate and work together as a team to make it happen. Everybody does their part, and you promote. And now with social media, okay, well, you promote down your area, and we'll promote here, and we'll move around and do it. And I think when me and Ross started the Tastemakers, when we were doing lifestyle marketing, because we just looking at stuff, you're like, okay, I don't have time. Ross works a full-time job. I worked a full-time job. I can't be calling DJs every day. I'm not sitting in the office getting paid to call people every day like record promoters do. So what can we do? Well, let's see if we can get cats together in a room to listen to music and get their feedback and do that. And so we started doing that slowly, and then I think with Marlo Martin, we were able to, our first one in New Haven was with Diamond D. So that brought in a lot of cats, and then as we picked up street team contracts, which some people think, oh, you're making a lot of money. You're not really making a lot of money. It was just more that you're making contacts and connections. And if you build your relationships and don't burn those bridges, you can always, cross back over, because the cats will remember cats that they looked out for. And then also when we're on the street team conference calls, we're listening to what everybody else is doing around the country. And it would one company, when you did your report, they put all the reports together, and we'll be able to see everybody else's report and what they did. Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. All right. That's a good idea. Okay. Let's take a little bit of this. Let's take a little bit of that. And let's do this. So doing the Tastemakers helped us out, because that means me and Ross didn't have to call people all the time. We can reach out to people, meet you face to face, fill out the form, get all your information, get your opinions on the record, and move forward.
But even in terms of like you working with other people to get your stuff done, even like if you're not involved in a project, if I said, yo, James, I'm working on, even me coming down here, you're still like finding ways to provide me with resources to do the things that I was doing up in Springfield. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, for some people, that's like it's intentional and they want something out of it. But when you seem to do it, you just do it just because, just to be helping people out. So it's like, is your family like that? Where'd you get that whole, I don't know. It's like you're always giving. You never come back and say, hey, you owe me a favor because I got you started. Or if I started naming some of the more popular DJs up in New England, period, to find out that a lot of them actually kind of got their start working with you.
So some have, and some came through the Tastemaker stuff. I mean, yeah. I think I got that from being around, like-minded folks when I was in California, because that's what they did. I mean, everybody was helping everybody. Yeah, in some cases they were rivals, but they would still do stuff together because it benefited both of them. And our thing was like, hey man, we need to do the same thing and realize that, if you put out good karma, hopefully it's gonna come back to you. And just being when I moved to California, I came out there, I was like, man, I'm a new kid at a new high school. I'm probably gonna have to fight everybody every day. I'm gonna be bullied and all this kind of stuff. None of that happened to me.
Right.
I said, hi, then we from Massachusetts. Oh yeah, well, Matt and such, they from Massachusetts too. And this person, and Craig, he's from New York. He's on the basketball team, and people welcome me in. Girls were inviting me to their house. I'm like, what? I was like, what? You want to come by my house, really? No,
right.
What?
That's cool.
That don't happen in Springfield, but people are inviting you to their house, and you're meeting their parents, and you're seeing where they get it from. They're like, hey, we're going here. You want to come with us? I'm like, okay. I mean, because not like I had a, family there. I just had my dad, and he was a store manager at a drugstore. So that means you're working long hours. So you spend most of your time by yourself or whatever. So running into these people that were willing to share and show me around and take me places, and you kind of want to, this is the right thing to do. I think that's why most of those cats in California I still keep in contact with. I mean, there's women that I've met in clubs dancing that we're still friends to this day.
Right.
Call each other sister and brother.
So that really impacted the work that you've done throughout the last 30, 40 years in Springfield in a major way.
Yeah, I think so. And then also with meeting all these folks in the record industry that were looking out, that were, like I said, I had a lot of mentors that would have conversations. That was back when record people called you up and, they were trying to get you to, play their record and all those kind of things, which was cool. But, you had conversation about what they're going on today, and people gave you suggestions. Or, I talked to a friend that she worked at Def Jam. She was a college rep, and then she ended up being a VP of marketing. And then I reached out to her, saw her name or something, reached out to her. She was working at Verve, and she was working some jazz stuff. He's like, well, my son wants to get into hockey. I said, well, something? There was a cat that I know that is Haitian. He lived in Boston. He's in Providence now. He was a hockey coach and played hockey. He's a black guy. He's like, really? I said, yeah. And then I told my brother, and he's like, oh no, well, this other guy, he was such and such, and he works in the NFL right now. So okay, if this kid is really serious, we'll try to figure out a way to help him. So I'm like, she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So when she's the one that put me
Oh, you're going out on me.
She don't want to hook me up with some Nina Simone stuff. So I was like, okay. Well, I'll pass it out for you. I don't want no money. I think I'm a Nina Simone fan. I think people might like this.
Right. Okay, that's important.
So I mean, if you can help somebody, help them. If I can't help you, I can't help you. But you at least invite people to come in, and if they show up, cool. If they don't, that's cool too.
Okay. So two more questions. Springfield Indie Soul Festival. You're going to year number 17. It's an event you helped to co-found. Talk about that experience. When people talk about festivals all over the country, but you very rarely get a chance to meet and talk with the folks who created those entities. Talk about your role in the festival. Talk about your experience in terms of helping to found it, organize it, keep it going, funding or no funding. Talk about that part of what you do.
I mean, I mean, for me, being involved with with all the cats that are involved with the Indie Soul Festival, we're all cats that could probably pull it off without me involved. But I'm glad they included me because we all want to see successful things happen in the area that we live. Mm-hmm. I love live entertainment, and being a part of live entertainment stuff that comes through the town. You want to see it, and you want to see your labor's work from all the other micro events that we were involved in, whether it was gumbo, whether it was organic soul or poetry events or meet and greets, whatever it may be. We're hoping that the Indie Soul Fest would be that combination of things where folks can come from around New England and maybe even the world now, because folks travel. Because when I had my record store, cats would come in from different places, surprisingly, to come buy records. I was kind of shocked. So hopefully, with starting the Indie Soul Festival, it would get some people to see that there's a lot of different music out there, and you don't always have to be mainstream,
right?
To find great music. Because now, you look at some of these music festivals now. A lot of times, you don't know the acts. You're going because you want to support the festival and the event. I mean, I look at Black Eye, what's the Tank and the Bangers? They played Greenfield for a couple years. Mostly white festival, but now look at them. They're starting to cross over and other acts like that. So trying to find those next acts. I know when we had Eric Roberson. People didn't know who Eric Roberson was, but now everybody that saw him, they're lifelong fans.
Yep.
Eric comes in the area now. He's been back. I think he did something a couple of years ago in the area. But those are the kind of things that you want to find those next artists and find folks that are like-minded that want to see something different. I know a lot of people are like, oh well, you gotta do like Harper Jazz and do this. And it's gotta be free, and it's like every festival can't be free.
Right.
I mean, for different reasons. Some stuff is funded by the city. Some stuff is funded by the state. Some people have big political connections that can get money to fund their projects. And Indie Soul was the key word there was indie. It's independent. So that means that there might be a fee there. If we just said it was the Soul Festival, maybe there'd been more money. But when you say indie, you're looking at developing indie artists, and you look at some of the artists that have been through that have gone on to be major names. That they're not like, I don't want to use his name because I'm anti him, but there's artists out there that got big names. Because he's doing a stadium tour now, so
right.
So he'll be, he's selling out stadium tours. And he's a small kid from Virginia, so anything is possible for any of these artists. But folks get a chance to meet some artists up close, talk to them, meet them, and become fans.
Yep. Okay. So let me ask you this. I think you've already talked about it, but mentorship and legacy over the years. You've mentored up and coming promoters, cultural leaders. What qualities do you look for in someone when deciding whether or not you want to mentor them?
I think for me is whatever people saw in me is, somebody that wants to see things grow. Somebody that's going to work. A lot of times you see cats, they want money. Just like, athletes. The ones that work hard when you don't see them, they're not partying, they're working, they're growing their network, they're trying to be students of the game and all those kind of things. You're like, okay, I want to be surrounded by cats like that, as opposed to cats that are like waiting. Well, if I give you these $5, man, will you go do that for me? You know, they want stuff done, but then want to reap all the benefits. But when something goes bad, they disappear. You know, they're the first one's gone. You want folks that don't mind being blue collar, that don't mind getting their hands dirty, get a little dirt on fingernails, and put in some work.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about always about glory. I mean, all those kind of things come if that's what you want. But I always try to find people that are humble, that are hardworking, that want. You know, my mom was a hardworking woman, single mom raising 3 kids. You know, everybody had public assistance, but I don't want that. I want to work, work the hours and put in the time, and you just want to find good people in hopes that they all grow and do some. And we've been everybody that's been around, me and Ross and Tyrone and Eduardo and Ricky and Kermit over the years, and all the other folks that have been involved. And have been so far people that want to work and grow and do some things. And, sometimes you have falling out. You get back together, realize the big picture is like, yo, man, we had some fun. We did some things and could do some things that other folks didn't do.
Okay. I asked and got my answer. Looking back on your 40+ year journey, what accomplishments are you most proud of? And what still excites you about the work that you still do today?
I think my most accomplished thing that I've gotten out of these years are my 2 kids, Winston and Lena.
Okay.
That, Lena helps me now with the urban influencer stuff that I do, just because she has no interest in it. She's a great organizer, does all that stuff. Like, and my kids are into different music than me, so I'm like, okay, well, yeah, because you be going left field sometimes. Like, yeah, I know. Well, somebody's got to take a chance, and who knows, down the road you might like it. Sometimes you just got to hear it at the right time, right place. I think just the longevity of just be around to be somewhat consistent, like a Don Felton and some of the cats that I've known and around, and you and Keaton and Doc Martin, folks that done stuff with, that are still doing stuff, and you're just like, hey, legacy. I don't know what my legacy would be. I mean, I know I passed by this morning. I passed by the Wall of Fame over by the Panache, since we used to do big parties at the Panache back in the day. You're like, okay, well, what's the qualification to be on the Wall of Fame?
Right.
Who else gonna get up there? So I don't know. I just want to be known for that. He tried his best to help people out.
Okay.
Didn't try to cheat you, because sometimes you help people, but they don't know you helped them. Because I know back in the day, when me and Ross were doing street team, everybody wanted to do street team. It's like, how many street teams you gonna have in Springfield? Springfield's only so big, and you're trying to get sales, and Springfield's only going to sell so much, and a lot of and you need to have real record stores where they can have sound scan numbers and those kind of things, the technical things, But if you're a club promoter, you don't worry about that. You're actually cultivating the market even more, and that's what we were trying to tell cats back in the day. But we want to do the street team thing. Like, you are the street team, but you're doing it for yourself. You're making more money. The street team, you're getting paid a little bit of money to do a lot of work, but you're making some connections. But you make the same connections as a promoter.
Yeah, working off of free tickets, free admission to parties, clubs, and concerts. Yeah,
But I mean, the legacy hopefully will stand on its own. Hopefully, will do some things to solidify the place, and also trying to remember some of these other cats that have paved the way to do stuff. Like the soul community back in the day, and we were talking about Queen Bee and other folks that have been doing stuff from. I mean, she was doing all the mixtape DJs. I mean, I didn't keep up with all that. I mean, I had George that came up with the mixtapes and the underground stuff when he was in the back of my record store, and he also worked at the music center. But now he's still doing stuff, and I like to see the stuff that DJ Stress is doing. I was trying to get him back on TCC. When I said, "Yo, man, you got to fight for it, man. You can't let these cats just get rid of you. You gotta fight for it." But he went out and built his own following, so I'm proud of him. So all the cats that we've done stuff with, and in the future we'll probably do stuff with, I'm proud of all of them because everybody's carved out their niche. They've done them things. I mean, I look at you and I was like, "Hey, girl, you used to do a lot of stuff." I'm like, where you find the energy to do all that stuff? I'm like, yo, I couldn't do it.
He was right there with me most of the time.
I'm like, I can't do it. Even my wife would be like, when you gonna stop doing this stuff? I'm like, well, you should stop doing the radio station. Like, you don't get paid for that. I'm like, yeah, but that's my way to volunteer in the community. I'm not a member of a bunch of organizations, but I'm a member of the station. So it says community. So that's my pseudo way to be involved with all the organizations. So if people come from an organization want to get on the air or plug for their stuff, I'm going to announce it. And,
Absolutely.
if people are looking for prizes, and if I have a way to get prizes for them or whatever, then I'm gonna try to do it. I mean, a lot of those things are drying up now because the industry has changed. I had a friend that worked at a label that used to hook me up with stuff from HBO at the end of the year because we did Tastemakers, and he's like, "Hey, you can get this stuff out to the DJs." I'm like, "Okay." We'll try to do the door prizes and raffles and stuff like that. So, we'll try to spread it out, but now she don't work there. And I've been sad the last 2 years. Like, oh, man. End of the year, I look forward to those big boxes popping up. Like, yeah. What are the shows I missed from HBO that I can look at now just because I see the props? Like, okay, this is a good idea. So hopefully she'll find another good gig somewhere where they cleaning out the stuff for the conventions and stuff like that. But we're just looking to network still to build a legacy, and I'm happy that Marv Mack hit me to work with him on Urban Influencer because I worked for him for Street Team for a couple of different labels, and he knows I'm pretty eclectic because we came up with ways to work the roots and flowetry and a bunch of other stuff back in the day. So and a lot of acts that are big now, but back then, how did you get play for these people that no room for them on radio? And it's finding people that want to see them, it's different stuff.
Right. And I just gotta say thanks to you and folks like you. It's like when you're coming from a small market, someone can keep us up on music because the music really fuels the culture in terms of where we go and what we do. So I'm gonna say publicly, thank you for everything you've done. Being a part of the spoken word world, I mean, you gave us life in that community that really kind of left an imprint and actually impacted what spoken word looks like across the East Coast. We've had everybody come through, and some of the things we were doing, thanks to your suggestions, your participation, your input, and your resources and contacts, we were able to do some things that they weren't doing in other areas. I mean, in large markets. So again, I say thank you for everything that you've done. Sometimes we have a tendency to not give people their roses. And then once they're gone, we go, yo, you remember such and such? Yo, he was dope. Nah, tell people why they're living. Because you, our spoken word scene was real. And it took me places I never thought, spitting poetry would take me. And a lot of that had a lot to do with your influence and your access to the airways, your access to your resources. So these are things that people typically don't talk about. We just kind of use people until we can't use them no more and keep moving. But I say give everybody their roses. And again, I thank you for being a part of this interview because you've interviewed thousands of people over the last 40 years. And I'm like, you know what? I don't remember anybody interviewing James because this dude is like a walking encyclopedia of music, contacts, resources, you name it. So my last question, what's next for James Lewis? with everything that you've done, if you had to put everything, if I had to write a book on everything you've done, it'd probably be an epic novel because you've done a lot.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, I don't think I've done enough in my mind, because I still look at other cats and folks that I've come across and watch them grow and still doing innovative things. Even like my old boss Henry, who's now like building houses out of hemp, and and realizing that the houses made out of this stuff are healthier. In my older age, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to get me a house like that where it can be soundproof for the neighborhood and the air can be more purified and stuff like that. But I mean, I just want to see, like I said, I just want to see my family do well, my kids, my niece, and get a tighter bond with my family in general. Because being up here, I think I got on my side of the family, I got one cousin here. Everybody's down in Georgia, Florida, Virginia, stuff like that. So, technically I should be down south. But we're here, and my brother's kids, they're on the East Coast and they're out of Texas. So you're here to try to be support for them too. But I mean, I think right now is to see how well my kids do and how their kids do. Hopefully I'm around long enough to see them have kids. Don't have no kids in the next 3 years, okay? I ain't that ready yet, but I just I mean, that question is so hard, man. I do want to accomplish some things. I do want to win. You kind of want to see another successful tour. I know we're trying to bring Organic Soul back. I kind of like to see that really explode and see. I guess the biggest thing is to see people copycat stuff. That's kind of when you're on the right track. So I want to come up with some stuff with some people that I like. Let's create some things that people are going to copycat. They might try to change the name, but it's the same thing.
Same thing.
So I mean, so when I came back from California when my brother was at UMass, I was like, yo, man, you can do this on your campus. They haven't done this before. How you know that? Because they were doing this at San Jose State. I got the pictures and the flyers. We'll do it. So I know things can be repurposed. I mean, because I mean, I mean, I looked at him helping start the charter up at UMass for Iota Phi Theta, and I would just give, hey, let's do a step show. Cats, some hated it, some loved it. So just being a part of it and finding some young folks that want to work and learn and are willing. I mean, because like I told somebody, I'm learning on the Monday night calls that we do on the Zoom. I learn stuff every Monday night that I don't know. Right. I don't know everything, but there's cats on there. And we finally found a mix of people that are willing to share and not be a gatekeeper. And I never want to be known as a gatekeeper. Here's the key. Y'all open the gate and go ahead. As long as you're willing to work. Now, if you're going to be lazy, then they open the gate ain't going to help you. The other people might
to hold information hostage or keep it prisoner is absolutely ridiculous. It's like dying a billionaire. It's like dying a miser and a billionaire at the same time. What good is having all that wealth if you can't spend it? What good is having information if you ain't going to share it? But go ahead. I interrupt.
Yeah, I mean, and rightly so. I mean, I guess I'm kind of a hoarder, so my wife is on my case because I saved all the notes and magazines. I'm a big magazine collector, so I know somebody was like, "Well, James, you need to give all that stuff to the Hip Hop Museum and this and that." I'm like, okay, all right. I was hoping that my kids would sell it or whatever, and it'd be something for them, but they're not interested in it. So. We're trying to get that. I mean, right now I'm looking for the next generation of people that we can work with, man. The next young cats and whoever. I think that's part of the legacy. Finding the next folks, because I've reached out to my son's friends that were supposed to be working in film and being creative. Like, hey, all right, you going down to Florida? Okay, well, I know somebody down at that school you're going to. He's a professor. just reach out to me. Tony Bass knows somebody down there too that got a Grammy Award that's looking for people to work in his label. And then these people when these kids don't reach back out, I'm like, yo.
They gotta want it. I mean, you can't. Most people expect things that, you know, these old folks holding on to stuff. Nah, they want you to knock on the door, have a conversation before you pass it on. You don't just throw the baton. You got to show that you want it. You have to prove your work. Yeah. But I'm running out of time, so I got to conclude this. And what I want to say, I do have an idea, a closing idea for you. I'm gonna throw it out there. Being that you do have all that stuff, all that memorabilia. I mean, just anything referencing the 80s and 90s, you have it, from albums to posters. I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to talk to Sam Bradley, we do an exhibit at the Palmusa Museum on the day of Organic Soul.
Okay. All right.
I think it's kind of dope to bring out some of the posters and just having it. It's a museum, so they need art, they need exhibit stuff, and you got things to exhibit. But we could talk about that off air. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's cool. I mean, there's other cats that probably got some stuff too, so you know, that might be cool. Like I said, you know, maybe some of I can get magazines, because I got to talk to Tim Bisa, because I'm like, you know, because people that, you know, like yourself, they do articles and print stuff. And it's funny that some of the people that I've talked to back from like when what was the magazine? There's been so many hip hop magazines over the years that you get, but personally, you know, I never saw that article. I wrote it, but I never saw it. I never got a copy of the magazine to get. I'm like, really? But you work for them? Yeah, but they never gave me a copy. I'm like, wow, okay. I'm like, I'm just shocked that doesn't happen. So I admire you and Tony Bass for having the wherewithal to still. Well, I think Tony still prints up his magazine once a quarter or whatever, and Cat's doing it digital. I mean, because that's where I got most of my reading was from reading comic books and reading magazines.
Same.
You know, and now it's a lost art. My kids are like, magazine. I'm like, okay.
If I can't scroll it, I can't. I won't know it. I got you.
Yeah. I got to read it and be able to go sit down and come back to it or whatever. It's like reading books, but you know. So yeah, man, that's something. Actually, that's something different. So, cause I was trying to get rid of some of the posters to sell to get rid of. But yeah, I mean, there's probably some things there for sure. My wife would love to see. Don't let me die, because she'll say, "Hey, come take everything."
Oh, I'm pulling up.
I just charge you for the shelves.
I'm pulling up with a truck to grab the albums. I'm getting there before KLS and everybody else.
Well, KLS probably got more records than me. Shoot, the person I'm worried about is Mark Reinhardt. He got the most stuff because he's still buying stuff. Like, hey man, he's buying the imports.
I got to get Mark on the show at some point. But hey, that's my time. I got another interview coming up, James. I want to say thank you so much for coming on and indulging me. I appreciate you giving me the time to do the interview with you, because we know it's hard to get you to sit down long enough to do an interview. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, sir, man. You're the first person to ask me to be interviewed. So, I mean, Tangy and them always ask me to interview somebody else. So I don't ever really put no thought into it. Like, yeah, you know, I'm just an old guy with gray, needs to take a shave or something.
Nah, yeah, dude. So with that being said, for all of our viewers, once this goes live, James WooBear Lewis reminds us that culture is not just what we consume, it's what we build, what we nurture, and what we leave behind. For more than 4 decades, he has not only played the records, he's also helped to write the story. And through his vision, his mentorship, his dedication to communities ensured that soul in all of its forms continues to thrive. James, thank you for joining us, and thank you for showing us what it means to lead with your heart. And until next time, I'm D.Moss, and this has been The Last Page. Thank you, everybody.